October 11th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Meeting. Could we do a roll call, please?
Misty,
Here.
Sarah, Al,
Here.
Aaron,
Here.
Bob, Jeremy, Josh,
Here.
Courtney,
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Next is agenda approval of the October 2022 Planning and Zoning Meeting agenda.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is minutes approval for September's Planning and Zoning Meeting minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is public comment. That would be for any item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment on something not on the agenda? I don't believe so. So let's move on to number 7, which is new business. Item A is consider the request from Josiah Robinson for recommendation of approval of a final plat for Robinson Subdivision.
So this request is for a final plat for the Robinson subdivision. This request, if it were to be approved, would create 3 residential lots, a little under 2 acres in size each. The lots are currently zoned for the R2 single-family residential attached zoning district, which allows for single-family dwellings, duplexes, and row housing. The applicant has indicated to staff that the lots are being subdivided for single-family development, specifically to divide the lots between the brothers of the family. This subdivision is located south of East 2nd Avenue and west of South Jefferson Way, and it currently fronts South 1st Street, which is a public gravel road. If the road were to ever be paved in the future, the adjacent property owners may be assessed for that paving. However, there are no plans at this time to pave that road. The comprehensive plan does show an east to west road connection for a major residential collector connecting West 12th Avenue to East Plainview Avenue alongside the southern boundary of the property. The applicant does show this road right-of-way dedication as 35 feet, so half of that along the southern portion for this future road connection. One comment was submitted at the time of writing the report. An adjacent property owner inquired on the request. They indicated that they were concerned about the property becoming a denser use, such as apartments, with the reasoning that there is a lack of sewer connection and that an increase in density may not be compatible with the gravel street. They also indicated that they would not like to see the road paved. At this time, staff is recommending that the plat be approved.
Do you have any comments or questions? Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to make a comment or had a question about this particular item in regards to the Robinson subdivision?
Hi, I'm Chuck Ty.
Chuck, would you mind stepping up to the podium and
Yeah.
give us your name again and your address, please?
Chuck Ty, 2011 North 8th Street. I just wanted to know, I couldn't hear her. What are they planning to do? And where is it adjacent to my property?
Oh,
North 8th Street, you're talking about the Summercrest.
Am I a different
Yeah,
one?
this is
this
next
This is a
item.
different
Yep,
item.
next item.
Okay, let's go to my item first.
We'll be right there.
We will table your question until the next item.
Okay.
Very good. Or would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve with the conditions that are stipulated in the staff recommendation. That is, the final plat be updated to show a 35-foot right-of-way dedication near the south property line for a future road connection.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion before a roll call vote?
And I just want to note really quick, we did receive the updated plat for it. Keep the condition, it's fine, because it'll satisfy the condition right away, but I just want to make sure. that-
Oh, so you
I
already
think-
have that?
Yeah, I think we got it already. Again, just keep the motion as is right now. It'll be okay, but just know that your condition's satisfied already. So.
Instant gratification.
Wow. Emily, could we do a roll call vote?
Yes. Aaron,
Yes.
Misty,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
Great. Next is item 7B, and this is consider recommendation on a request for a minor modification to the Summercrest planned unit development.
I'm trying to recall when this came forward in 2020, who was all here. Courtney probably was working for our department at that point, so she knows it is. And Lynn, I know you're a neighbor, so you probably have somewhat of an understanding. But just to go back kind of over the history on this, back on July 6th of 2020, the city council did approve this planned unit development. What the planned unit development does is creates a separate zoning district essentially for this property with separate regulations and so forth. All of that has already been approved. What they are asking for in this application is an amendment to that PUD. Very high level on what is being requested. As part of the process that we went through here, the city has been attempting to get an easement where that current trail sits along Hillcrest. So the city does not own the land underneath that trail by right. We have an easement over top of it. Through this plating process, we had wanted to get title to that ground, so we held it in title. In doing so, when we got to the final plat stage and the surveyor took a look at it, there needed to be some shifting of some lot lines, which then essentially was decreasing setbacks. So when you move that rear property line on those lots that were adjacent to Hillcrest, moving that rear property line north, you're then taking the rear setback from where that rear property line is and moving that away too. So from the naked eye, you're not going to see anything different here at all. It's all going to be the same. The utility easement underneath the ground is a little bit narrow, but we've worked with IMU on that and they were okay with that. What it really does is by allowing this to go through and allowing this amendment to go through, the city is then able to take deed to that trail and have that property in title. So that's really the only change that's happening with the PUD amendment. So if there's any questions particular to that, I'd be happy to answer them.
About the trail, are there easements on the east side and the west side of it also? Or is there a way to put the trail through there?
You're talking the current trail that's there right now on the neighboring properties?
Yeah,
Yes, the neighboring properties both still have easements on them.
and
It's,
so,
they vary in width depending on where that trail is, but the nice thing about this one is actually that trail was just straight across that property. So we're working on right now the Hillcrest paving project. I think as part of that, we're trying to do that, but we saw this as a great opportunity just to get this one taken care of right now.
So the end goal would be to have all the trail be deeded to the city as opposed to
Having it by easement just cleans it up a
this is,
little
we're
bit.
just cleaning it up on the
Yeah.
front end.
Does that change or help or deter maintenance with the sidewalk at all?
Nope, nope. So through the easement agreement that we had with the previous property owner before Geo Horton bought it, and that easement then runs perpetual with the land, but we take care of all the snow removal, any panels that need to be replaced, the city takes care of all of that, so. It's easier for us because Parks and Rec, they just take a truck with a plow on it, plow it, so it's really easy for them to maintain that.
But then the other thing was it lowers the amount of property.
It
for
does decrease the
buyer.
size of those lots, yeah. The actual location of the house really doesn't change. What happens is the rear lot line goes from the south side of the trail to the north side of the trail. Really the only thing that changes. Yeah.
6 feet.
No, it's probably about, with where you've got a little bit, it's probably 15 feet or so. I'm completely guessing right there, but
For the city, for sure. Do we have any questions about this particular item from the audience?
Chuck was asking about.
Was it this or was it the following?
How does it relate to my property? Lynn, you know.
Well, I think that because it's within 200 feet.
Yep.
Of our.
what did you say your
property.
address was again?
2011 North 8th. Other than the second house.
Pull it up here really quick and take a look at it. So what we're doing, this step, and then there's another application after this for the final plat. Really what it does is it effectuates all of the construction that's been happening out there for the last, what is it now, year and a half, whatever that may be. So the stages is they've gotten the zoning approved in 2020 and they had their preliminary plat approved in 2020. What that then allows them to do is go out there, construct it, put the sewer lines in the ground, put the water lines in the ground, the storm sewer lines in the ground, put the roads on top of all of that stuff. Then once that's all finished, they submit a final plat. We review the final plat. Council hopefully ultimately approves that final plat. They can then take that final plat, take it to the county recorder, record it, and then those lots are created. At that point, they can start building houses on them.
Right. So they're at that point right now.
Yep. And that's really all it is they're at that point right now. They're asking for that final plat approval.
So this doesn't run, I mean, it's 200 feet from my property. What does that mean? Is it in my back, next to my backyard?
Yeah. I mean,
Does
that
it go behind
development,
our houses? Is there a trail that's going to go behind our houses?
No,
Nope.
it's talking about the sidewalk, the bike trail right
Existing.
now against the
Along
parallel
Hillcrest.
with Hillcrest.
yeah.
Oh.
That is those properties there, the new properties that
Way
are.
out, way on the other end then.
Yes, on the south, far south, right,
Yeah.
right along Hillcrest.
Really, the only thing that you'll see different than what's there right now is going through this process is that houses are going to start being built on those lots.
Right, I got.
Yep.
I'm all with that. I just didn't quite coordinate.
Well, and I think the question is, you received a notification and you're like, what's changed that
Yeah,
I need to know
right.
about?
Yeah,
And it's that the city will own the sidewalk,
Okay,
the main
That's
thing, and we'll get everything recorded. Yep.
right?
then will they take the trees down on the back of my property?
I don't think so. I did, and I,
No.
yeah, no. I'm pretty sure we're down on pretty much most of the construction. work.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minor PUD amendment request as submitted.
I'll second that. Any further discussion before we do a roll call vote? All right, Emily?
Aaron,
Yes.
Misty,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
All right. So the next item on the agenda, C, in related news, consider recommendation on request for approval of a final plat for Summercrest Plat 1.
I won't go over the details of everything that's happened history-wise on this one. The only thing I will add is that preliminary plat that was approved back in 2020 did include a total of 68 lots. This final plat is bringing 45 of those 68 lots forward. The remaining 23 lots will be platted together in the second phase of this development. Long story short on that one, the reason those 23 lots are not being platted right now is just because they are not able to get sanitary sewer service to these lots until Quail Meadows 5 is developed. So recall we've done Quail Meadows 3, Quail Meadows 4. There's a little piece between this development and Quail Meadows 4 that needs to be developed yet. That sanitary sewer does flow to the north into that new lift station out there. So once that piece gets finished, then this developer is able to finish their piece and connect everything together and we'll be done. So This plat does include the extension of North 7th Street to the north, where it will terminate into a dead end. Again, waiting North 7th to be extended from Quail Meadows 5 when that does go through to connect up into that area. The plat also does include the connection of East Scenic Valley Avenue, where it's currently dead-ended on the properties to the east and the west. So we'll get that connection through this subdivision. And then lastly, this plat will also include new roads, which include East Trail Ridge Place, North Summercrest Street, and East Saber Place, all which are complete through streets on here. Grading, utilities, pavements have all been completed for the subdivision. Staff has done actually 2 rounds of punch list inspection on this. As of right now, we are still waiting on one remaining issue with some storm sewer lines out there to kind of get some clarity on that and what the developer is going to do to fix some possible issues that we have out there with those. In the grand scheme of things, I think they're relatively minor, but just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And then we are, I noted in here that all maintenance bonds for the improvements have been received, but we're actually still waiting on the pavement maintenance bond as well too. So I know that has been completed. I think it just needs to be submitted to the city yet. So with that, city is recommending approval of the final plat. In our recommendation, we wrote as submitted, but I would just request that we maybe modify that and just note that we bring it forward to council once we get some clarity on that last storm sewer issue. And really quick, just the reason we didn't include that in the staff report was because I think we inspected, our second inspection was last Thursday before this was published, and that came up on the second inspection. It wasn't on the first inspection once we got the televising and the sewer lines done. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Can we really do a final plat on this since it's been over 6 months since the preliminary?
What we say in our code, and the way I have always interpreted since we've been here, that preliminary plats expire after 1 year, but that expiration is only if nothing gets done out there in that time period. And that's typically how I've always been taught from a planning perspective, and I think that's how other cities handle that. The reason is again, they have gone through the process of putting the infrastructure out there. They started that over a year ago. There was a little bit of a delay, I think, in getting the paving in this year, but they have been making steps to get the infrastructure in there. So the reason that 1 year expiration is on usually preliminary plats is if nothing happens. For example, when I first started here, we did a preliminary plat on McConnell subdivision on what would have been the southeast corner of the city there. Since that time, we've had absolutely nothing done out there. So that preliminary plat has expired, but this one, there was activity out there within the duration of when they were allowed to start construction.
Well, the reason I raised the question is under the applicable code sections, 170.06 final plating procedure, it says the final plat shall be submitted within 6 months of the approval.
Yeah.
And the approval was July 6th of 2020. So
yeah, and that's where that time frame that I've always used is you do have to, I mean, and you've got to allow for time for this stuff to be constructed. And if we held everybody to that saying, no, the final plat needs to be submitted 6 months after the approval of the preliminary plat, most of them that we've done when we do it. So again, my interpretation from my standpoint has always been, as long as construction has begun out there within that time frame, we're good.
why don't we change this?
We will be.
Okay.
We will be. That's, again, I think I've said this now every meeting probably for the last year, I feel like, but our subdivision code changes are coming, hopefully starting in January, and that's going to be one thing that we do clarify.
I have some questions about the PUD, and I'm not sure how this fits the PUD zoning. Because it just looks like a housing development with nothing else. And then the PUD zoning it talks about parks, it talks about open spaces, it talks about mixed uses, and there's none of that in here. So why is it a PUD? Why isn't it just?
So- You'll recall when it was
Discussion.
approved back in
Yeah.
2020, we didn't call it a PUD, we called it a PRD, it was a planned residential development. And the more stringent requirements that are now in our PUD were not included at that time. So that's really what we're dealing with is this was approved under the old zoning code. It's essentially grandfathered in under the old zoning code and what was required as part of that old R5 PRD zoning district. When we changed the zoning code, updated the zoning districts, all the R5 property went into the just straight PUD property.
See, what this really looks like is it looks like a way around the minimum lot width requirements.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it
And that's-
was when we
yeah.
went through it back into the old code, is trying to take a piece that had some development challenges with a developer that was willing to develop it. And if we created, instead of broadly changing your R2 or R3 zoning or any of those zoning classes, create a special use just for this singular piece. I mean, that was like how we spent, I think, at least an hour, that meeting back a couple years
Yeah,
ago on
I
it,
know.
creating it. And we've now redone our codes so that things will operate differently going forward. But this one is definitely, I think, under that grandfather status of.
Yeah, and I would just elaborate a little bit further from the conversations that we had at that time too, and really the master plan of the whole Summercrest Hills area did include this property, and it showed that this property would have multifamily uses on it because with the narrow as narrow as it was, really that was the only thing that you could get to work on this property while still meeting the zoning that was in place. This property owner took it, looked at it and said, hey, we think we can get residential to work, but we need to relax some of the setback requirements, some of the lot width requirement, at which point they submitted their PUD, which again, as I mentioned with the last application, is essentially like a creative zoning district for that parcel that the council can approve on a case-by-case basis. So that's what was done with this one.
Ultimately, yeah, create an opportunity for a product that uses the ground effectively and is very popular. I mean, not just in the metro, like nationwide, for homes of this caliber on this size of lot. And so hopefully our new zoning, and if Charlie ever fixes our subdivision codes, will make this smoother and not as clunky going forward. It's definitely a clunky way that we did it, but it was what we had given the codes that we had at the time, my recollection of it.
So this wouldn't happen again under current.
I'd have
Regulations?
to analyze that. I can't answer that right off the top of my head, but I know our new zoning regulations did create that they did take the lot width down from, I think, 70 to 60 as the minimum for single family. And I think there are some that are a little, I know most of these are 60 out here, but if I recall right, there was a few that might even have been a little less in the 55 to 60 range. I don't recall right off the top of my head, but I can't say that for fact because without seeing what the setbacks and everything do, I really don't know.
I guess and it's not specific to this project, but it is a PUD, okay? And it seems to me, how do we, if we really want a mixed use area, how do we get a mixed use area under these zoning regulations? Because it looks to me like, oh yeah, we want that because it says that's the intent. Also
Yes.
says the intent is to have open space, and parks, and et cetera, et cetera. But how do we get there?
Yeah, and I think anything coming forward would create something like that. So I'm trying to think, we've got a few PUD areas in the city that were in the old PRD. So all of Heritage Hills, for example, is in a PRD, and those are just more estate lots, bigger lots, stuff like that. I really don't know the reason that was included there. The only thing I can think was when the country club got that piece of ground that kind of surrounds there, I think just because there was a golf course plus a residential use taking place, that's why it was done. Coincidentally enough, Deer Run Golf Course and all the residential uses around that are in a PRD. Wesley Life, the senior center up there on E Street is also on a PRD, and I think that's all that we have. We might have a few more here and there. I can't think, but those are some of the bigger ones we have right now. But that's typically what you're doing, you know, like Wesley Life, they do it because they've got kind of different levels of services for senior citizens out there. And just to get that to meet and have that all in one campus setting, that's how they're doing that.
So I guess we'll have to look at each one when they come forward in the future.
That's exactly what it
And-
is. Because you're essentially creating its own zoning district. So
And make sure that they meet some of the intent of this.
Well, some of it depends on
Classification.
the size of the piece of ground.
Well, see, that's the other thing is, if that's the intent of this district, so what about the size of the piece of ground?
Well, I think it's.
That's their problem, isn't it? I mean, are we gonna change it every time somebody comes in with a piece of land that doesn't quite fit? So they wanna squeeze it around some
Isn't
way.
that the whole intent of planning and zoning though, to look at what's happening for what cities need to be vibrant and to be welcoming to the type of product that consumers are looking for, that are going to be citizens of our city, and not to, it gives the opportunity for the city to look at, okay, here's why it makes sense. And then it has to go through the approval process to make sure everyone agrees with that.
Well, on the other hand, though, in my view, zoning regulations are also to give comfort to people who are already in the area. So they can be assured that, well, okay, if this is going to be a PUD next door to me, I understand what it's going to be. Or if it's going to be an R1, I feel comfortable that buying this house and knowing that's going to be an R1.
And yet it can change at any time by someone applying to change it.
I know, and we got into that very thing over on the northeast side of town. And that's exactly what happened over there. And the reason there was such an objection was to Cabot Creek.
Yeah.
Because those folks were sold on the idea that they were building a house there, building a house, and what behind them was going to be the same kind of property. And then it changed. And people don't like that when they've been told that there's going to be one thing next door to them. And they find out all of a sudden something different is going on. And I guess that's the reason I think that if we're going to have a PUD, not against them, but I think we ought to be rather stringent in requiring what happens there, and it meets the intent of the zoning requirement, rather than looking at it as an opportunity to make an exception to fit a piece of land.
And that's exactly why we went through and updated our zoning regulations back in 21, right? Yeah, my years are, but
I mean,
21. And so that's exactly why we did that. But when this came forward in 2020,
Yeah.
it met the intent of the PRD at that time.
and I think even to
understand
the
that.
point on this property, Al, I hear what you're saying, but a lot of those folks bought single family lots over there, not really understanding what the field was behind them. And we could have approved this for a giant apartment complex and held that
Right.
apartment complex to some park ground, which probably would have pissed off a lot more people.
And it would have been exactly.
Well,
Or-
yes and no.
or-
Because
Or, right, you can look at this alternative that came forward as well, which is more single family homes in the area, right? At the end of the day, hindsight's 2020 on all this stuff. We did under the old codes. We have all this here on this. I think it's good discussion, but that's also why we put all the codes in place to hopefully help encourage better stuff up front when it comes to us. And then ultimately, we have the checks and balances here of what we recommend or don't recommend. And then the further check and balance of what council will or will not approve going forward.
Well, and I recall the fear wasn't, there's not going to be park space or open spaces. The fear when it was originally proposed was it was going to be cheap housing that affected our property values, not realizing it's likely going to be $350,000 to $400,000 houses being built on these lots. But we digress.
Yeah.
It's also one of the great things of now having the comprehensive master plan, right?
Yes.
Which was it before, which now can sort of like, it's the great thing about having a vision so that people kind of know if you're looking at a house, what is in the area, what's the intent or the vision for the community for, developing around you. But, yeah. It's balance, right?
Any other questions or discussion from the audience? Would anyone like to approach and ask any questions?
Corey Bloom. I live at 900 East Euclid Avenue in Indianola here, and I'm proud to do something in my hometown finally. I was not with DR Horton when we started this project, so I'm not familiar with a lot of the upfront negotiations that were had with the city. I can say that probably about 75% of our developments through out the metro, Ankeny, Waukee, incorporate some kind of plan development such as this, where the city has some kind of say in bulk regulations that we have. And, you could have certain requirements outside of your standard zoning that would be, say higher than what your standard zoning is. But in this particular development, we did have some unique challenges. We would have been here much sooner, but we worked with the city, came to us in June roughly, and put a kind of the brakes on our development and said, hey, we're going to redo Hillcrest next year, potentially. Would you work with us a little bit so we don't have to tear out as much stuff when we go to do that? So we re-engineered everything at that entrance, basically saved about roughly $75,000 to $100,000 for the city in the future, having to tear out back further into the pavement into our development. We raised lowered everything down because the tie-in to Hillcrest to what we think it's going to be pretty close. So would have liked to have been here much sooner. Would have liked to have started houses out there by now, but we're hopefully ready to go here this fall yet. And
Thank you.
I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Corey?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, if you could approach, thank you.
Robert Rogers. My wife and I live on 623 East Scenic Valley Drive, which butts right up to it.
Yes.
I'm looking at those lots and I'm seeing something that's not in the evaluation of what is there. And we go to the east, you got those houses there. And what we're seeing is, and I talked to some people that's working around there, that these are not going to be the same evaluation as the houses that we're living in. So in essence, you're sabotaging the values of our houses. And I'm really upset about that. I moved from Milo from the farm 3 years ago, and I walk into this. I'm not happy about it. But I just sense that something is not quite, what I want to say, when Al said, it's within, and then you're going to go around it. I mean, that's the legal standpoint. And now you're going to ignore it. I don't want my property values to go down. Neither does anybody. You got the Vintage Hills, you got the Y. I just hope that the houses you're going to put in there are going to be the same valuation that we're living in. Otherwise, they're going to go down. You're a realtor. It's going to go down. And we're going to be the one that's going to be paying for it. If we want to sell it, it's not going to be what we bought it for.
So a couple of different things to address with that. The way the lots are laid out, that plat had already prior been approved and gone through that process. But on the other side of that, what I would encourage you to do, and I think this was a lot of misunderstanding and misconception for people that maybe have not gone through similar communities. As Corey touched on, there are communities similar to this all over the metro that, at that time in 2020, when we went through the plat approval process, I pulled up on the Des Moines MLS, like new construction that had similar size lots, and there were like 100 homes that were available at that time. I think the initial assumption is because it's a small lot, it's going to be a cheap home. And
Can you assure me it's not going to be?
Well, I can't guarantee anything with house values, prices, what
Well-
things will sell for. I can just give my educated, just my experience. But, I think the thing that's uniquely interesting about this type of product is land development costs are so high right now. And so I have Quail Meadows Plat 4 listed right now. There's not a lot in there that's under $85,000. You cannot build an affordable home, new construction home, that is
No,
more
but wait a
moderately
second,
priced.
Misty, you're not answering my question. Can you assure the
But
homeowners
that's
there?
not our job
that-
to assure
that
you
these
that.
are- That this evaluation is not going to go down?
So where I was going with that is busy families, people that are looking for more of a townhome type lifestyle, but maybe not live in a townhome. They don't want a 0.6 acre lot. They don't want a supersized lot. They want something that's going to be easy to maintain. And so this type of product gives them that opportunity, but also gives them the opportunity to have a new construction, beautiful home. There's going to be millions of dollars worth of homes that are built on that 6 acre piece. Whereas, as Josh touched on before, there could have been affordable apartment buildings built there. Neither of which truly within a city the size of Indianola, the setting, unless there's something that's a blatant, we don't see that a property being adjacent to a neighborhood has a dramatic effect on the valuation or the sale price. So that's my opinion in my profession. It's different from me as being on the Planning and Zoning Committee as a citizen and business owner in Indianola. But I think both have that same goal of there was thought put into what would be here, and the market shows that we need more opportunities for this type of product in Indianola. My opinion
What
is
is this?
it is not going to hurt your property value.
I don't hear what type of product you're talking about.
They're talking about single family homes.
Yeah,
What they're gonna do.
houses.
Valued at how much?
But that
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
yeah.
Before you answer it, 'cause you
Because
can,
they think they're gonna be like.
Most of our homes, I wish we could be under $300,000, but in today's environment, we can't. I mean, I think some of the ones off of 15th there, I just looked through them. I don't know that any of those are under 300. It's just harder and harder. I mean,
But that's inflation, right? And, it's driving up those costs.
Well, I think it's twofold, right? And this is where you have to holistically look at the market in Indianola, right? What was true in the market in Indianola 5 years ago
Right.
is not true now, right? Our floor as a community, naturally outside of inflation, has risen, right? This is all probably anecdotal. I'm sure Misty could pull some stats that show those things, but that's not something that we deal with here.
No.
Right? So he's going to tell you to the best of his knowledge, like they're building brand new homes. They're going to probably be in that $300,000 to $400,000 range, somewhere in there. D.R. Horton's reputable nationwide builder, right? It's going to be what it is, right? On that front, we can tell you anecdotally, the market is better in Indianola than it was 5 years ago. Now, I don't know what it's going to be in 2 years. I can't guarantee anything with interest rates that they are, and that's not really our job here. Our job here is to make sure that we're allowing uses that are appropriate for the zoning designation. As it was zoned previously, and Charlie, stop me if I'm wrong, multifamily development could have gone in there with minimal approvals because it was zoned appropriately for that, and gone right through, and that would have been okay. We had a single family home builder approach us and say, hey, we would like to instead do single family homes on this because we feel like it's a need for the city that is good for Indianola. It's good for our company because we can sell them, right? Nobody does this. Corey, I don't think you do this pro bono. Right. And then the single family will fit the flow of what is going on out there, where you do have, to your point, vintage hills, right? My grandma lives out there. You've got some of the duet homes out there as well. You've got the the apartment complex over here, you've got nice homes here, you've got $85,000 basis lots going on around the corner here. They're gonna be $600,000 to $800,000 homes. All this, right, combines a bit, right? Like the blessing for the one neighborhood here is that that other client's building $600,000 to $800,000 homes right to the north of you, which
No
in
one complained
turn,
about that.
yeah, yeah, which in turn, right, helps your neighborhood.
It's the progression, it's the natural progression of, I mean, that's the whole idea of zoning, that there's different things
Yeah.
that stagger
So-
beside each other.
Or
That's not our.
No.
slab homes, but that's what the city told, or the IMU people that were out there the other day said these are all gonna be slab homes.
So I don't know why they.
That's been a rumor for a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and then we tried to debunk that
I
as
mean,
many
that's-
times as we could. so.
That's a great thing to come to this meeting and ask that, right?
Yeah.
To DR Horton's point,
Lots of rumors.
no one from IMU should be stating for the record what DR Horton is building. Just like I'm gonna do my best not to tell you what DR Horton's building. I go by the plans and what's put in front of me, but I don't know all the nuance of what Corey and his team are doing. I know from my perspective, why I approved this PUD 2+ years ago was because it was an opportunity to create what I felt was a single family home product that brought better value to this area and was a good use of that land that fit within what we wanted for the future use for that to be. And it brought that to fruition. Right now, it's taken some time because apparently I didn't know that you guys were so generous to the city with your street placement. That was mighty nice of you guys, right? I can see how, from your perspective, it's like, yeah, you got IMU out there telling you it's going to be slab homes, and you see smaller lots and all this stuff. All I can tell you is you can trust Corey. I can't speak to what they're going to build. DR Horton is the builder. They have a website that shows all the products they do nationwide. I mean, I don't know. I think at the time of this, when we approved the PUD, you guys were the #1 or #2 home builder in the nation. I work in multiple states, and DR Horton's all over the country. And so it seemed, and it still seems to me like a good use of that product. We've talked about Cabot Creek as opposed to a product coming for this area, like the product that was proposed out of Cabot Creek that the city needs, but this seems like a better use for this piece of ground than maybe a product like that here, given the senior housing in the area, given the single family homes like in your neighborhood. And so that's what we're trying to create here. And it's certainly not trying to be less than forthright about any of it. We can just only guarantee what we can guarantee. And then one thing I can't guarantee, I mean, I laughed, my wife and I moved 6 months ago. And, you know, I do not plan on getting any market appreciation of my home for a little while, you know, because a lot's changed in 6 months, and I probably bought towards the peak of more things. Okay.
This is a little bit more on personal. As you got the map there in front of you,
Which,
Maybe
are you
I
looking
have
at
one
the
right here.
plat?
maybe you all.
Right here, there's one.
Okay, now what, here, yeah, it's, oh boy, this is Greek town.
This is
We're-
Hillcrest right here.
We're 623 at,
Look at lot 11.
is this it up here?
Lot 11.
So you're right down here. You have like a pie shaped lot? Is yours pie shaped, sir, on the end of the
No.
cul-de-sac?
No,
No.
no.
Do you see where lot 11
I'm
is?
not-
Oh, you're up top
Yep.
You're in one of the.
in one of the duets?
Yeah.
Townhomes that's taken
Yeah.
out.
Yep. you're
Literally,
up-
he's in the
But
one
that-
right next to the
that
boundary.
slides out. I mean, slides towards the road. There's hardly any lot there. And I don't know how you can put a house.
Well, this first lot is actually sideways,
Yeah.
so.
So all these lots
So that's
face
my-
east-west,
that's-
and this one faces
Yeah,
north-south.
that's what's frustrating about this, because this is gonna be right up next to my house.
Well, so I think what the intent of why they did it this way, and Corey, you stop me if I'm wrong, is all your homes all face north-south. And so they're continuing with this lot facing north-south, so it stays in line. So you're used to your shared wall and then side yards on either side. And this will have side yard, single family home facing the exact same way, and then side yard out to their corner lot. And then behind that, it switches to east-west orientation that then filters in through here. So it'll feel like the exact same as to what you guys have currently. Instead of just having a duet style home, it'll be a single family residence facing north-south is how it's being platted right here.
It's kind of funky because this last lot did get kind of carved off with that instead of just straightened off, so there's no real
Yeah.
corner lot on that.
I got my
side.
disagreement with the guy that built it too, so.
Well, that's one, yeah, that's out of this, this commission's hands right there, that's for sure. Does that help you kind of make sense a little bit better?
Yeah, but I don't know, there's so many rumors.
Mhm.
There are lots of rumors coming from every segment.
Yep.
Planning and everything for this. But
That's I
this
applaud
is
you.
gonna be on you guys. If Horton does build side of homes, you've been lied to.
Absolutely.
You've been conned.
Applaud you
So if
for
that
coming
starts-
here.
If that starts happening, you guys are gonna be on the record of.
Well, I think you should go talk to city council, and we just make recommendations. They
Well, you're
approve
still gonna
everything.
be on the record.
They're the ones ultimately.
Understood.
Brought it to-
Understood, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So there's still storm sewer that needs resolved, correct, Charlie, to go back to the front there?
Yes.
I'll make sure I didn't forget.
I wouldn't want it.
Any further comments or questions? From within our group or the audience? Would someone like to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve using the recommend approval with conditions that the storm sewer issues, you can write the technical term in there, are resolved prior to council.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion before we do a roll call vote? All right. Emily?
Aaron,
Yes.
Misty,
Yes.
Al,
No,
Lynn,
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
All right. Next on the agenda is item D, 7D. Consider recommendation on a request for approval of a plat of survey for Matt Thomas for a property located within 2 miles of the city of Indianola.
So this request is for a plat of survey outside of city limits. It's located east of the city off of Highway 92. The application is for a boundary line retracement for the lot. And this request follows a previous subdivision for its parent parcel, which was previously split in 2002. The property is currently located outside of the city's annexation priority area, and one property owner did inquire on the plat of survey request, though no comments were provided. Staff is recommending approval of the request.
Comments or questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
phone's ringing.
It was great.
It works.
I'll make a motion to approve the request as submitted.
Second,
Any further discussion before roll call vote? Don't think so. Let's do it.
Aaron,
Yes.
Misty,
Yes.
Al,
yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
Right. Next item 7E, consider recommendation on request for approval of plat of survey for Chad Daniels for a property located within 2 miles of the city of Indianola.
Okay, so this request is also a plat of survey outside of city limits. It's located to the southeast. It's southeast of the city limits. The property takes access off of 158th Avenue. The lot is currently a nearly 25-acre vacant lot and contains sensitive environmental features such as a meandering creek and a floodplain. This creek does flow downstream to the South River, and the floodplain on this area does not have a detailed analysis performed on it at this time. The applicant has indicated that the request for the plat of survey is to create a buildable lot for a new single-family dwelling that does not contain any portion of the floodplain, and staff is recommending approval of the request.
Any comments or questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
Recommend approval.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Any further discussion before a roll call vote? Emily?
Aaron,
Yes.
Misty,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
All right. Item 8A, building permit report. Charlie?
Yeah, just really quick, a few things. The building permit report is in there. I think it kind of got discussed a little bit here, economy wise, but we're still seeing a little bit of a downtick in single family this year. I think it's, and I've said this a few times, it's a combination of what the economy is doing. It's also a combination of what we have available for buildable lots right now. On that, if council does ultimately approve the Summercrest development that you recommended for approval tonight, that'll be 95 lots that we have final platted this year. So I think I've always said kind of that goal is to get about 100 lots platted, 100 houses built each year. I think that kind of gives us a good progress to hopefully grow by about 3,000 to 4,000 in population over the next 10 years to get to that 20,000 that our comp plan had identified to get to at that point. So we're getting close to that 100 lots platted. We're not really there on the houses being built. I would estimate we're probably gonna be more towards 50 to 60 this year. But again, with the infusion of new lots that are buildable, hopefully next year that starts catching back up. We also have quite a few lots, I think, that are going to be on target to get final platted next year as well to get closer to that 100 number too. So we're sitting pretty good. I'll just jump really quick into current projects updates. I know next month the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to review our updated sign code. That's really fun and exciting. Right now, you as the commission have done nothing with a sign code because it's been an independent code. We're going to actually get that into the zoning code. That allows us a little bit of flexibility on what we can do with it. Right now, our sign code, any variance to that sign code goes to council. If we put it in our zoning code, it goes to the Board of Adjustment, which is a little bit more of an appropriate way to handle those. But that will be something you'll be reviewing next month. So if you like signs, get very excited for that. And then I know we'll have for sure one subdivision plat that should be coming forward on Heritage Hills. I don't even know what number we're on right now. I think 12. Yes, 12. That'll be the extension of the duplex townhomes on the north side of the golf course. Preliminary plat for that. And we still have 3 site plans sitting out there right now that are in review of some form, and hopefully we're a little bit closer on those here next month. So those can be coming forward as well. Any questions on any of that, would be happy to answer it.
I have a request. In the future, for these properties that are outside the city limits that we're voting on, would you also put in there a locator map so
Yep.
we know where they are? I
think
know
the
where
one
these
had it, didn't
two
it?
are. Yeah, the
Yeah.
one did.
And that's the applicant, Matt Thomas, on those always does a really good job of including that on there. But yeah, we'll get
Just,
some.
it's just helpful. Thank
Yep.
you.
And hopefully when I know I've said this again, go back to the subdivision
Someday.
code updates.
Someday we want.
Someday you'll likely
Yeah.
not even be reviewing them.
Good.
Unless you really want to, then we can
No.
keep it. But
Like hearing what's happening out there.
Yeah, could just write the code to have them speak.
She gets exclusive information.
All right, any other comments or questions? Or would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.